Righto, ladies and gentlemen, you hear that generic podcast intro music, you know it's time for the podcast known as DIRTBAGZ. So this is another great recording that we're doing here. So I've got my man Danny Curran in the studio at home. Danny Curran, what's going on?
Oh, mate, just another day, just living the dirty, the lifestyle in the dirt. We're loving it, and we're out here having a good time.
Heck yeah, good. And what we have on right now is our first official full-time podcast guest, the man, the myth, the legend, the guy behind Race Wheels Australia, Mickey Taylor. What's going on, brother?
Hey, lads. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm very privileged and honoured to be the first official live guest. So, mate, love what you guys are doing. Got to say that I'm surprised that you're scraping the bottom of the barrel this early, but hey, it's your podcast to do what you want.
I like it.
Straight up.
Well, we're just working out some new techniques, some new devices, so we thought, why not test it out on you? So I'll get some official business out of the way first, and that is, cheers, Mickey T. Cheers, DC.
Cheers, lads. Wouldn't be a Taylor Curran chat without some social lubricants.
Absolutely.
That's
so
right.
For those of you listening along at home on a podcast there, we just had to have a little bit of a drink. It's been a long time since myself, Danny Curran, and Mickey Taylor have all been in a room together. So we're looking forward to this. So Mick, he's got a lot of history in the sport and of off-road racing. And but also, like, I guess some of you guys out there might mainly know him as the man behind Race Wheels Australia. But one of the things we wanted to do was bring him onto the podcast and just let him explain a little bit about himself. He's got a big history in four-wheel driving, has owned some four-wheel drive shops. He's an electrician by trade. But Mick, why don't we just hand it over to you and let you introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us a bit about your background and what you've been up to.
Well, broad question, but it depends on how far you guys want to go back. But
we've got time.
Okay, let's do this. I guess being, the podcast that this is, generally off-road racing is 100% our family background. Has been since the 70s. Our dad, Nev Taylor, was one of the OGs in off-road racing in Australia way back in the early Baja days. So that's how far back my connection for off-road racing goes. It's a lot of my earliest memories back in those days. Following Dad around the country, watching him race, in the real early days. Right back to his first off-road race car was basically it was Mum's shopping trolley with a Baja where he would pull the engine out of Mum's car, put it in the race car, and go racing. And then Sunday night, come back and put the motor back into the street car, and so Mum could drop us to school. So, that's how far.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's legit how far back it goes. And mate, it's been a hell of a ride, in the dirt sports arena ever since.
That's awesome, man. A mad shout out to Mama Bear Taylor there for letting Nev pinch the motor out of the shopping trolley to put it in the race car. And that is crazy commitment to the sport there. You get home. I know how stuffed I am when we get home from a weekend of just commentating. Sometimes it can be a big weekend with the travel and everything like that. And then having the deadline of having to get the kids to school in the morning. Man, that's crazy. I like it, but that's steeped in history right there.
Oh, absolutely. And I guess, persistence is a word that's, gets brought up a lot in our upbringing and family. And, that was just the persistence of the old boy that he wanted to go racing, and that's how he made it happen. So, and you see that a lot in competitors now these days, not so much pulling engines out of cars and having to put them back into, to their family car to go, do what they need to do back on a Monday again. But that's just off-road racing in general. The off-road family will do whatever they need to do to get to the racetrack, to make it happen. And even once you're at the racetrack, you know, the broader off-road racing family will, you know, will pitch in when somebody needs something, and that's, you know, that's what's just so great about, you know, what we do and the sport that we love so much.
Absolutely. Hey, Mick, 50 years, because I never did the math on that, but the 70s to the 2020s now, 50 years of off-road history, that is pretty crazy. You've got to have some simply amazing stories. Like, I've heard stories about coaster buses. You know, lots of times the adventure isn't just racing, is it? It's getting to the track, it's building the cars, you know, those things. I mean, am I on the right track here? It's been a little while since I've heard the story, but it was Ryan that went backwards in a Volkswagen and finished the race in reverse, isn't it?
Yeah, well, if you look on, I think there's some YouTube video of that particular incident. It was Kempsey back in the Baja days. Ryan, he came over the jump, and it was to greet the finish line. So I don't know if, you know, we're going back, and a lot of your listeners may not be aware of, you know, the Kempsey layout, but there was this awesome gap jump that you had to jump. Then you landed back in the arena, and there was a bit of a sweeping right-hander to the finish line. And as Ryan's gone over the finish, over that gap jump, he's landed. The brake caliper was broken, so the brake caliper mount's broken. Jammed the brake caliper into the back wheel, and then the only way that he could get forward movement was to spin it around, back, put it in reverse, and back over the finish line.
How good is that?
Yeah. A lot of people they deem things like that tailor luck. We've had a lot of you know, bits of dumb luck over the years. So where, you know, there was an event where the old boy finished a long time ago, and back in the Baja days, and they were a little bit weak in the front ends with the tie rods, and he'd finished the event, drove up onto the trailer, and the thing broke a tie rod on the trailer. So you
got to take the
lucky
good luck
sometimes.
with the bad luck.
Oh mate, yeah.
Sorry,
mate.
I gotta.
Bad.
Yeah, copy that. Yeah, plenty of bad. We were talking about that when we had Ryan on the podcast last time. We said, gee, it feels like in the last couple of years, if you guys didn't have bad luck, you were having no luck. But I just want to circle back around, because I'm not as old as you or Dan. I just thought I'd slip that one in there straight up. But
Ouch.
Did you say there was a gap jump at Kempsey? So you actually had, like, you had to clear a gap and land on a down ramp. Yeah, you had to commit to it, and you either had to roll it fully or commit and clear it. And it was a proper gap jump, like you'd see it, say, Supercross.
100%. Yeah, and it, like, you could literally walk through that gap with your hands above your head and not touch the race car. So, and man, we're talking back in the 80s. So, you know, we're talking small horsepower, small wheel travel, small tires, and you literally had to probably pull 80 or 100 kilometers an hour. That's it. Big kahunas, commit. And man, there were like class 5 Datsuns and, you know, all sorts of class 7 Tritons. And man, these guys were sucking it up and just getting that run up and sending it.
That's unreal, isn't it? Yep. Hey, mate, that leads me to think, just as you're talking about some of these great races. With your history and your family history, what is the peak race for you, the one that you stand out, like just a location, really, not particularly a race, but what did you think was the premier off-road event that you've been to?
Oh, look, I guess
I've thrown you under the bus, haven't I?
100%, mate. You've thrown it in there, and you're making me commit to an answer.
Yeah.
For us and our family, it's Gundawindi.
Yep, that's a good one.
Gundawindi. Yep. Out of all the races we've been to, and look, taking nothing away from Fink at all, it's an amazing event, you know, and it's you know, it's the event in Australia for off-road racing as far as, you know, everything around the event, but pair everything back as far as drivers' racetrack.
Yep.
And really, what more is it than, you know, the challenge of the track? And for me, it's 100% Gundawindi. It's got everything that every other event and track has, I think, in the country, all wrapped up in one racetrack. And if you don't have your car sorted, if you don't have your driver sorted, if you don't have your prep sorted, you are not going to win Gundawindi.
I like that answer, Mickey T. That said like a good Queenslander, mate, a good Queensland event. I like that. But no, you're right. And Mickey, that's, you know, it's a tough one because honestly, that's going to be a different answer for anyone. Even down, hey Josh, I'm throwing it out there. Like one of our favorite races, we love Gundy, we love Fink, but we went to Burdekin and couldn't stop raving about it just due to the fact that it was, it was our local race, if you want to call it that, up in central Queensland, even though it's fairway north. But it's the fish burgers, it's the event, it's the hanging with the boys, as a whole event. Sometimes it's not just the track, is it? Like Gundawindi, really, I mean, you get down the Royal, you get, it's just there's stories that come out of these events are really what probably leads us more than the event. Obviously, we love driving, we love race cars, but man, there's just so many great events everywhere. You don't necessarily have to go, oh, well, I've got to go to Fink, or oh, I've got to go to the big ones. I mean, the local races can be just as much fun, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, there's plenty of great events, around the country, and like you alluded to, DC, if you're local to one of those events, go to those races. You don't have to, spend the big bucks and get the airfares, to go to all these big events. Go out to some local events, and I know for a fact Queensland's state championship is extremely strong, and there's a lot of fast guys there. There's really good quality deep fields, and it's the same in other states. WA is doing really well with a lot of their events. South Australia's always been strong, with car counts. So there's plenty of good events to go out and introduce yourself to off-road racing and see the equipment and just the people and the competitors there. If you've never been to an off-road race, just go walk through the pits. You can pull up to any pit in any car and have a chat, and someone will be accommodating and tell you all about the sport.
Yep, absolutely. It is very good like that. Hey, Mickey T, I also wanted to lead on to, we're talking about race cars, and I love that, but you're also a mad four-wheel driver. I mean, the first time I'd ever been to the west coast of Fraser Island was with you guys. Tell us some of those old school history. So I know you told me a few. What's your favorite memory going camping? It was a Range Rover, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, way before that, it was VW Bajas. That was how we would get to Fraser Island when we were kids as a family holiday. So it only became a Range Rover when Mum and Dad had too many kids to fit across the back seat of a Baja. So
bloody Ryan Taylor. That bloody Ryan Taylor.
I know, right? So so back then there was, when there was three kids, there was, and you imagine fitting all that crap into a VW Baja for
that's amazing.
For a family of five, like Dad, the only way Dad got to take beer was to actually buy cartons of beer and then start pulling each can out and stuffing them into little cracks that was left after everything else was loaded.
Yep, absolutely. That's amazing.
And the only way you could keep them cold was to throw them in an orange bag into the creek to chill them down and drink them at just under ambient. So, that's as early as the memories go.
And that's an amazing way to grow up, isn't it, Mickey? Versus nowadays, if you don't have the ARB fridge and the rooftop tent or the caravan or the other stuff, and I'm not knocking any of that, it does make it very nice, but we live I don't know what the word, but a very nice existence camping. Soft. Yeah. I like soft too, but you're right. It's changed.
No, mate, I'm sitting in here in our shack at Burham Heads with my 22-foot caravan parked with the family in it, mate. So,
there's nothing wrong with that.
Things evolve, mate. But and now I long for nothing more than just a simple swag on the beach at Fraser Island and a campfire. So,
so are you suggesting boys trip?
Boys trip, 100%.
Ready to go.
I'm meeting you guys halfway now. I'm at Burham Heads, so you guys are at Rocky. So I've
whoa! You pooed, mate.
Sorry.
Close.
If you're ever looking for it, it's right next to your fork.
Oh, hey Mick, that leads us on to, so obviously again we mentioned that a lot of people may or may not know you as your Race Wheels Australia background. That's what appears to be, I mean, it's obviously a long history that you've got in racing and in mechanical and all that sort of stuff, but it's a short rise. when did Race Wheels Australia start? And give us a little bit of the history about how it started. How did you go, you know what I need to do? I need a rim shop.
Yeah, well, I guess it was 2012. And we had contracted Gene Towler from Get Performance to build us a new race car. And that sort of then led to the introduction to a really good buddy of ours now, Harley Lettner. And back then he was sponsored by Method Race Wheels. And we, in 2012, so that sort of, that logo emblazoned on the side of the Alpha, I suppose, introduced us to the brand. We went over to the USA in 2012 to race the Get. It unfortunately it wasn't quite finished. We were entered into the Mint 400. So I went over there 2 weeks earlier. The car, just wasn't ready. Just one of those things. So we asked Gene if he knew of any race cars that were available that we could potentially lease, because Dad and I were entered to drive the Mint 400 in 2012. Yes. And Gene just said, "Oh, Harley's got a couple of spare cars." So that led to the journey of us going to Corona in LA to meet Harley and his legend of a late grandfather, Danny Lettner. And we had the VIP tour through Lettner Roofing and then the Lettner workshop. And in that workshop at the time was the Alpha, a new streamlined Class 1 car, Tatum 1, Tatum 2. And, man, that was just, for a couple of Aussie guys, that was basically as good as it got. And basically Danny Lettner said to us, "Which one do you want, boys?" So not the Alpha, but
not the Alpha,
not the Alpha, not at that stage. And we looked at all three cars, and at that time, and look, there was some budgetary constraints there.
Always
at that
is.
time, at that time we weren't expecting to buy another race car.
Yeah, true.
So at that time, Tatum 1 looked like a great, a great option. So and look, I'm going down a rabbit hole and diverting from the question, but we'll get there. And we did the deal with Danny, who owned the cars, and we shook hands. At that point, we weren't in a position to transfer him the money there and then, but because we were introduced to Danny through Gene, or Danny and Harley through Gene, he goes, "You've come to me through Gene. I've never done anything like this before. We'll shake hands and we'll do a deal." And we said that as soon as we get back to Australia, we'll transfer the money. So
that's impressive.
Oh man, like I said, it just goes, to the character of of the man Danny Lettner and and the family and Harley, and they let us drive away with their race car on a trailer, and true to our word, we got back to Australia, we transferred the funds, and the rest is history. And we've since bought another race car off them.
Well, that's just what I was about to touch on. When you first walk into that shed, did you ever think that of the 4 race cars that were there, you will end up owning 2 of them? Like 2 excellent racing cars, yeah.
No way. And the one that I really, really wanted to own just got sold. So
yeah, we did just see that on Instagram that Harley has sold the Alpha, and he didn't even phone us first. What a dog!
Yeah, yeah. So,
I mean, I probably could have transferred him $10 Australian, but that's
which is $5 American.
Yeah, it's like $3.
Yeah.
So so yeah, look, that that made that connection with Harley, and then we got to talking to Harley and asked the question as to, so he made the introduction to us with the guys from Method Race Wheels. And so we got back to Australia, and then started talking, and they were like, "Yep, let's do something down there." And look, back then it literally started out as a few pallets of wheels at a time, and just going back even further, Method Race Wheels was established in 2010, so we made the connection with them in 2012. So they were still a new company, and we've just been so very fortunate that we got in on the ground level with with such a great wheel brand, with now such a great history and place in off-road racing in the USA. Their whole background and mantra is lighter, stronger, faster. It's all about getting it right on the racetrack and then learning those lessons into the street wheels. So there's no other wheel brand on the market that basically uses the manufacturing processes from their race wheels and their competition wheels with trophy trucks, and then takes that same manufacturing processes over onto the street wheels.
And I think that's interesting, Mickey, because like you said, I probably didn't realize that it was only 2010. So in 12 years, not only have they come a massive way, because a lot of these other ultras and they've been around since the 60s, 70s, if not longer. Same deal with the Walker Evans and bits and pieces. They've been around a long time as a wheel manufacturer. So Method is new to the market, but they're constantly developing, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. And look, we can touch on this later, but they're revolutionising, I feel, the off-road wheel market, where the future of our wheels, I feel, is going away from bead locks to their new bead grip technology.
Okay.
So yeah, so they've been.
It's that good, Mick.
100%. So
yeah,
they have been testing this new technology on NASA Alatia's Dakar Hilux. There's been a couple of the Can-Am teams at Dakar have been running the bead grip wheels, so no bead locks. Luke McMillan ran the first ever 18-inch bead grip trophy truck wheel at the Parker earlier in the year on the new development BFG 40-inch, 18-inch tyre. So,
wow.
That's how cutting-edge Method Race Wheels are, is the trophy truck guys are like, we need bigger brakes. So between Method and BFG, they've worked on a solution to that, where BFG's come out with the new 40-inch, 18-inch tyre. Method Race Wheels have come out with the new 18-inch wheel, but they're like, well, let's put our new technology into it. We don't need a bead lock anymore. We're going to bead grip. So that takes rotating mass out of the wheel, takes a lot of weight out of the wheel with the hardware and the lock and the bead lock ring, and just the amount of less maintenance required, because you don't have to keep torquing up bead lock bolts anymore. So
that's fascinating.
Yeah, so that's where Method Race Wheels are. That's and this is a little bit of, instead of the race giving inspiration to the street, Method Race Wheels have had the bead grip wheels available for the last 5 years on their street wheels. So they've developed this technology, used it out in the off-road, recreation, off-road and street market, and now it's coming back into the race market.
And for our listeners, Mickey, that aren't necessarily hardcore into the tech and the racing, what you're essentially talking about is that bead locks are illegal on the street. You can now run this bead grip technology, and you've got essentially, if not as good, as a bead lock wheel for your four-wheel drive registered on the road. And then the other thing is that you touched on brakes. I didn't realize that, but again, if you're listening along at home, 17, even back in the day, it was a 15, but obviously calipers and brakes are getting that big. It's the same with all the street cars. You can't put on a new Y62. You've got to run an 18 because the brakes are so big on them. Now trophy trucks are following that. And so they actually have now gone up a tire size from what would sort of be called the traditional for the last couple of years, the 17-inch. I didn't realize that, but that's a great forward step, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly right. Like as race, particularly trophy trucks, and as they keep developing and going faster and faster and faster, the components have to keep up with that. So these trophy trucks now that used to top out at, say, 115, 120 mile an hour, they're now going 130, 140, 150 mile an hour. Yeah. They've got to pull up. So I guess the teams realise that, hey, there's time to be gained with going deeper into these big stops. So they're we're like you said, DC, we started back in the 15-inch wheel era, and
yes,
and look, there's still a lot of Class 1 pro buggies, older pro buggies here in Australia, even beam car, even A-arm cars that are still on a 15-inch wheel, that if they want to get more performance out of their car, they need to reevaluate their brake package, put the bigger, and it all comes back to suspension technology. So the cars are going so much faster now, not because of horsepower, not because of gearboxes, but because of essentially suspension technology. So now these cars are going so much faster, they need to stop harder. So it's gone from the 15-inch wheel, with the brake package, to now like, hey, we need bigger brakes on these things. So now they go to the 17-inch, and the next evolution is bigger brakes and 18-inch wheels.
That is fascinating. I didn't realize they've made that step, but it's a logical progression, and then the tyre manufacturer will catch up.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, BFG, hats off to them. They have been the stalwarts of off-road racing for a long time, and they've now come out with this 18-inch tyre, and a lot of people think, oh, we'll just bolt bigger wheels and bigger diameter wheels and bigger diameter tyres on it, and it's not just as simple as that. There's a lot of R&D that goes into these things with the wheels and the tyres to make them work and get those last few percents out of these things on a trophy truck. And these trophy truck teams are just spending millions and millions and millions of dollars on their program, and they're looking for any advantage that they can get. So if you're the first guy to roll out with they've all got the same equipment. They've all got the good equipment. They've got the Gibbs motors, the Dugan's motors. They've got the best shock packages. They've got the 4-wheel drive now. So now they've got to go looking for those other couple of percents. And it's like, well, if we can stop harder than the competitor,
that's right.
Down to the Americans never used to qualify. They qualify now. So now they have to qualify like we do, as good as they possibly can, because the difference between qualifying in the top 3 or back in 7, 8, 9, 10 means you're chewing on dust for the day. And a lot of those tracks nowhere to pass.
That's a fair point, Mick. It is something that I wanted to ask, just because you were talking about those little percentages, and you did say like that it's gearboxes, suspension. Do you think it's a bit of a vicious cycle? Like all of a sudden it'll be horsepower is the number one thing, and everyone will be chasing horsepower, and then they're going so fast or so much horsepower that the gearbox can't keep up. So then they get the gearbox sorted, and then then the suspension can't keep up, and that's what we're seeing now. So the gearboxes are being sorted, the motors are being sorted, the suspension's being sorted, and now we're looking at, like you said, brake packages, because that is something that America, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you said America didn't used to qualify, and now they do qualify, and that brings a certain level of intensity to their racing that I don't think America really had that intense, like, fire furnace sort of race that Prologue is. Like it's 8 or 10 kilometers or 10 mile, 15 mile, but it's an out and out sprint race.
Yeah, absolutely. And it probably all started, I think, with the Mint 400 for them when it came back, where even back in 2012 when we raced the event, there was qualifying there. Whereas the majority of their other races, you just drew your starting order out of a hat. So that sort of put that intensity, and these guys are pushing hard. Like when we were there at the qualifying for even back in 2012, there were guys end for ending over tabletop jumps, that were just pushing real hard, because they know how important that starting position is if you really want to have a crack at this event. So like we do over here, we have a lot of dust. They have dust, and a lot of those guys aren't so kind in pulling over, and on the flip side, they're not so kind in being patient for waiting for someone to pull over. They'll take you for a ride over the air if you and that's just racing. So you know, it's if you get punted off the racetrack over there, you had it coming. So it's now all about that, getting that qualifying spot. You look at some of the some of those events that the Martellis are putting on and covering now, and where we can watch those whole events, you see how it all unfolds and how important that starting position is. And these guys are now strategizing so much, even with their pit strategies, so they can either keep track position or try and gain some track position by pitting later or carrying more fuel and trying to get a half a stop and a splash and dash at the end. And so it's almost an 8-hour Formula One race.
Yeah, that's right. It's getting very interesting, and again, it's stepped up a long way, because I guess with qualifying now, you've got the fast guy at the front, whereas before you said, pulling straws out of a lot. Everyone was in the same boat, wasn't there? Like, if Robbie Gordon or someone that you thought, or McMillan or whatever, even though it was unlikely that they'd end up in first, they'd end up in seventh, and you're in ninth. Well, that's a sort of parity situation. But if you're in ninth in qualifying and they're in first, they're out front, they're checked out.
That's it. They just got the lucky dog, and that's just how it was. So, I think it's a better way to have the events where the fast guys are where they should be, and the event's not compromised by just dumb luck. Yeah.
And I can agree with that. Like, we're notoriously bad qualifiers. Hey, Josh, like, it's not our thing. We're sort of slow starters. A few people are, you know how it is. But that doesn't make even for us, we agree with the qualifying system in Australia. Like, the guys that are up the front are there because they're fast, and that's acceptable.
Yeah, look, 100%. If someone puts a thing on pole or qualifies well, then they were the guys that pulled the harnesses down tight and took a big deep breath and had a crack. And look, I think 99% of the times, if you qualify well and you put the thing in the top three against the quality of fields that we have here in Australia, you've taken risks.
Yeah,
you've taken some risks, and it's panned out for you. As long as, like, my biggest bugbear is if the racetrack doesn't have the same sort of terrain and doesn't mimic. If the qualifying track doesn't mimic the racetrack, and if the qualifying track's basically a flat track and the racetrack is rough, and that to me probably isn't in the spirit of it, or isn't, because you're going to end up with people who qualify well on a certain flat racetrack, and they can't race so good on the racetrack proper.
Yes, you do see that a bit, don't you? In a couple of events. But it's also hard, because I do understand that you're limited by, where you're starting in and everything is. But yeah, I do know exactly what you mean, because it is nice to see events where the people that deserve to be there on that track, like Gundy's a prime example of that. If you're good at Gundy, in qualifying, well, you've done the rough stuff. You've done Malapanya Run, even though heartbreaking, Mick, no Malapanya this year. That's going to be a bit of a game changer, isn't it? Although, I mean, it throws back to it wasn't that long ago. Malapanya's about 12 years old or something. So it's not like Gundy doesn't have great terrain. We're just going to move the spectator area, I imagine.
Oh, that's right. Like, I guess I'm showing my age, because to me, like, Malapanya Run hasn't been around that long. But if you say it's been around since, and it has. Like, I remember being in the commentary box with you guys back when we first brought the Tatum into the country, and Ryan doubled that triple. So
that's right. That
was back 2012, 2013. So
well, it was definitely there in 2009. I can tell you that. I remember it in 2009.
Yeah, and like I said, that's a piece of racetrack where I was just saying, you come around that last corner before Malapanya, and I know about being a driver, but I was sitting in the navigator's seat with Ryan, and we come around that corner, and the first thing I did was, like, pull on those belts a bit harder, and just shut my mouth
It's
and said to Ryan, well, there's nothing I can tell you about this bit of racetrack, and whatever I do tell you, you're not going to listen to me.
It's amazing, that bit of track, isn't it, Mick? Because the car's just so light for so long, you're just floating down there. It's a wild feeling.
Yeah, look, and even back in the earlier days of Malapunya, I feel was the real Malapunya run. You know, it got a little bit of attention, a bit of a tickle up, which I feel took a bit of the character out of that piece of racetrack. It made it faster, but I feel it made it easier for cars that didn't have their setup right.
Yeah, you used to have a little bit of technique with it, whereas now, if you've got the kahunas to do it, you really just hold it wide and roll down it, don't you? Yep. I mean, don't get me wrong, that's still a sketchy thing at 210 k's an hour. But the reality is it's different. You don't have to time it like you, because again, for ladies and gentlemen listening along at home, if you've never been out the back in bear country at Gundawindi, it's almost like a single jump, a triple jump, a double jump, a gap, a flat bit, a double jump again. Like, it is actually like motocross timing in a pro buggy, isn't it? Or a trophy truck, or whatever you're driving.
Yeah, it's a 100-kilometer motocross track basically, and
it's amazing.
These things aren't all in line either. They're called melon holes, and you know you'll jump into one, pop out of the next, and these things aren't in line like they are in Fink. They're all over the place. You'll hit one on one angle and then one on the next, and it's just the best country for off-road racing.
It's amazing. Hey Mick, sorry mate, this is the DIRTBAGZ podcast. We get off track and I love it. There's no issue with that. But let's swing it back into the race wheels, because we're just interested in a bit of the history. I know a lot of people in the four-wheel drive industry are probably back. You know, we all love the stories. We love everything. So what I was interested in the four-wheel drive market, when did you hit it and you said, hey, you know, you mentioned that you had a couple of pallets coming in the early days, but then all of a sudden it's obviously changed into the thriving company that it is now. When was that for you that you went, here we go, I'm not an electrician anymore, I'm selling wheels?
Yeah, look, it's over the years of race wheels, it's been in the hands of myself first, and then Ryan, and then Clayton, and then that's more recently, and then it got to a point where it was like, hey, I'm going to get out of the solar and electrical company and come over and give Clay a hand, you know, to I guess just to see where this thing can go. So like I was saying, in the early days, we knew somebody who was bringing muscle cars into Australia from the US, and we would literally send pallets of wheels from Method to the logistics warehouse in Long Beach, and they would break those pallets down and they would just stuff those wheels underneath the muscle cars and bring them in, and we would just pay him, you know, X amount per wheel to bring them in.
Yep.
And then it went from there, and it was going well. And then, you know, we were just bringing them in and people were buying them, and that was great. And look, to be honest, it was 100% a side gig. You know, we were bringing wheels in, we were filling a little gap in the market. And, you know, back in those days also, only the hardcore or the ones that knew of, you know, who Method race wheels were and what they were about. And, you know, as far as the street scene goes. And then something sort of happened in our solar industry that I was sort of drawn away from the wheel business, because I was doing them both, and I had to focus pretty heavily on our solar business. And then Ryan picked up where I had to leave off, and Ryan put a lot of good systems and processes in place, you know, for the business, and, you know, got the some of the inventory and management side of things, which I'm terrible at. So, you know, he did a lot of that, you know, put a lot of that infrastructure in, and then, you know, like I said, our core business, and, you know, what has been our bread and butter for over 40 years is we're electrical contractors, and, you know, we do air conditioning, and then when sort of solar became a thing, we you know, we focused very heavily on that, and we still do that to this day. So, and then Ryan had to, same deal, he had to he was needed back into the solar business. And then we said, hey, Clay, can you, Clayton was looking for a bit of a change. So we slid Clay over to GM of the wheel business. And, it started rolling and getting bigger and bigger. Then we started getting containers out of the USA. And, we thought, geez, it's a big risk. It's a big commitment for, a container of wheels. That's a lot of money. So we did that, and that was working well. And then, we started doing, more and more containers. And then we probably, we probably didn't give it the attention that it really deserved. It probably should have been a little bit sooner, but, life gets in the way, and, you're doing what you're doing. And then it was probably back in, late 2018 that it really started to snowball. And that was when we made the move to get me out of the electrical company to come over and give Clay a hand. And at that point in time, we were like, well, we've got 2/3 of our resources between myself, Clayton, and Ryan in that business. So basically, Clayton, Ryan, and Haley were still in the solar electrical business. So I moved over there, and we're like, well, hey, if we're devoting this much resources, personnel resources into it, we've got to have a crack. So we just doubled down on on stock and really got stuck into it. And I think it's just the time. You got to be lucky sometimes, and I think the timing was right. But then again, like they say, the harder you work, the luckier you get. But the timing was right. Yeah, the timing was right. And we just started kicking goals and getting more stock into the country. We've got an exclusivity deal with the guys in the USA. They've always supported us. They've been fantastic. They're just a really good crew of guys in the US at Method. So just it was with their support that we said, look, you back us, and we'll commit 100% to you guys. And it's just snowball from there. And we get to the point where we think we've got enough wheels in the warehouse, and you have this sort of goal of like, right, once we get to X amount of wheels, that's enough. Then we can just maintain that. You get to that, and you're like, geez, we don't have enough. So we've got a 40-foot container coming into the country in every 3 weeks, and there's nearly 1,000 wheels in a 40-footer. Over 50% of those wheels are on back order and pre-sold before that container arrives. So that's the demand, and I guess the where Method race wheels are held in the 4-wheel drive industry, that it's the wheel to have. Yeah, and rightly so. We're not the cheapest wheel on the market, and we never will be, and we never profess to being that. But if you want the best engineered, the best manufactured, I know I'm biased, the best looking wheel with the best finish, it's Method race wheels. And like I say to customers, when you know, and if you pull up to a set of lights with a set of Method race wheels on your 4-wheel drive, and you look over at someone else that's got a set of Methods, you just give them the nod.
Yeah, well, I think the big game changer for me, because we've been following since the start, obviously, Mickey. We've loved what you guys are doing, but I think I realised, like, we'd obviously been to the Lawton shop and all that sort of thing. There's a lot of history there. We've done photo shoots and bits with you guys. And then it came, you had that stock in the corner, and, it was an electric wheel. And then I saw a photo on your Race Wheels official Instagram site, or it might have been a story. And the pallet racking of Methods is just unbelievable, mate. It's impressive. And like you said, I know the back order system, like the fact that you guys, again, half those are just turning up, and they're just such a great looking wheel and such a popular wheel. And that actually leads me, because the other one that I was interested in, Mick, is what is your best selling wheel, and what's your best selling product under the Race Wheels banner at the moment?
Oh, look, I've said to Clayton before that if we had have made a business model out of black 305 NVs, and that was the only wheel that we bought into the country, we would have had a very successful business model. You know, that wheel dates back to 2010, 2011. So it's an OG wheel, but it still outsells everything, you know, multiple times over. And look, it is such a great, you know, whoever designed that wheel got it right the first time. So yeah, it's definitely the matte black 305. You can dress them up now with, you know, sort of modernize that wheel a little bit with the flat cap. So you know, if you're OG like me, you like the original cap, but you know, some of the methods, their more recent wheels have a flatter center cap on them. So you can even modernize that wheel a little bit with the flatter center cap, and it also now comes in, you know, some really cool colors with the matte titanium, the matte bronze. The limited edition was the red that came out, looked really cool, and my favorite is the machine face 305 NV. So hands down, if you go through our inventory analytics, that wheel just keeps popping up. But
we're fans, Mick.
100%.
Hey, Joshy.
Yeah,
good rib. I mean, we got a couple of them on the Y62s as well. So, and it even got the tick of approval from the missus. So she let me modify her shopping trolley a little bit. So that's if it's getting the tick of approval for mum to drive the kids around, well, it's a win-win for all the dads out there as well.
Absolutely, mate. When the wife's happy to put a set of method race wheels on the shopping trolley, then mate, you know you chose the right wife.
That's right. No, fantastic, and that's sort of
speaking of choosing the right wives. I've got a funny story for you. So you guys are very familiar with
Sandy.
Alicia.
Tune out now if you're listening. Sandy, tune out now. No,
no, you're gonna like this. So we've got a same deal. We've got a Y62. It's got matte black 314s on it, 2-inch lift, 35-inch Toyos. She loves the car. It's her favourite car ever. We're in our estate, and there's a Y62 in there that's got an exhaust system on it. Comes past the other day, and she's like looking at it, listening to it. She's like, "That's the same car as mine." I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "Can mine sound like that?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Yes.
I see her thinking. I'm like, "Well, Mother's Day's coming up," and she's like, "Yes, please." Boom.
Oh, I love it.
Mother's Day.
You nailed it, Mickey T. That's a win right there.
Oh, I know, right? So,
yeah.
So,
brilliant.
So yeah, got a system ordered for Mother's Day for the Y62.
What system did you go, mate?
I left it up to my the shop that does all of my work, Innovative 4x4 at Ormo, to just whatever I choose, but I'm pretty sure it's a Bow Desert.
Yep.
So
can't really go wrong there, but it's a good brand.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, look, I spent way too many hours on Facebook on the Y62 pages with those contributors that video and their exhaust pipes, and I was like, so they all sound the same to me on the videos. So
yes. Hey, now
I thought
Mick,
I'd keep it local.
Absolutely, mate. That's a great thing. Hey, now that leads us on to, because the other thing that I wondered is, you know, you guys are always pushing the technology. So your future development for Race Wheels Australia, where are you headed?
With Race Wheels Australia or Method Race Wheels?
Let's go with both. You can give us a bit of info on both.
Yeah, look, I think we touched on it earlier. I think the future technology as far as the racing side of things is, you know, I think beadlocks are going to become a thing of the past. So
that is a big call.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, look, if you see even the latest 103 beadlocks, so the new trophy truck and the buggy beadlock wheels, the inner lip, so not the outer lip where the beadlock is, the inner lip, they're already starting to put the bead grip in that inner lip. So now their wheels are almost a double bead lock wheel. So you've got the bead lock ring on the outside, you've got the bead grip on the inside. My personal feeling is they will do some more R&D testing, and my gut is telling me that it won't be too long before we've got a full bead grip, say 17-inch buggy or trophy truck wheel, in the maybe in the 15s and also the 17s. And I think you'll probably have the option of both for a while, but my gut says that the bead grip will outsell the bead locks into the future. And look,
if you don't mind me putting you on the spot a little bit, Mick, do you happen to know off the top of your head what the weight difference is between the bead lock rim and say just the bead grip rim?
If you were if I were to look up the specs on say a 17x9 neg 12 trophy truck bead lock wheel versus a street 17x9 neg 12, there's a fair chance they may have to put some more material into the into the TT wheel or the race wheel as opposed to the street wheel. But look, I'm going to say there would probably be up to 1 kilo to 2 kilos difference.
Yeah, when you're talking about unsprung weight, and for people listening at home, unsprung weight is anything that hangs off the suspension is probably the best way to describe it. That is actually a huge difference and a huge advantage when we're talking to, here's my big word for the podcast, especially when we're also talking about reciprocating mass and trying to break that and slow that down and also accelerate that as well. That's actually 1 to 2 kilos doesn't sound that much, but it's actually very impressive. And as you were saying before, when you've got guys like Luke McMillan, Andy McMillan, Dan McMillan, Justin Lofton, all Tavo Vistola, all in a Mason 4-wheel drive, if you can find that little 0.5%, that's what can get you to the top spot in qualifying. So that's something super cool, and something that I wasn't actually even aware of that Luke had raced at was it Parker or Mint on the methods that
it wasn't Mint. What was the race where Rob Mack tipped him over?
Yes. Yeah, just recently.
Yeah, it was this year. I'm pretty sure it was Parker.
Parker, yeah. So he actually raced with no, traditional bead locks. He raced with just the bead grip rims.
Yep, the whole
so cool.
The whole race, he was on the bead grip wheel. So when you ask me about the weight, what does the bead lock ring and all the hardware bolts and washers weigh? So basically, that's what you're removing out of the wheel. Yes, there's more material because you do now need that outer lip instead of the lock ring. But they're definitely going to be lighter than the and look, we already have side by side competitors racing on the bead grip wheels here in Australia.
There you go. Yeah,
purely
very
because the advantage method race wheels have in the UTV space. Everyone was running the 15x5 5+0 401R wheel, which is the latest and greatest beadlock wheel from Method for that space, and that's been a fantastic wheel for those competitors. And like what we're saying, the side by side category is so competitive and so close that these guys are looking for every little bit of advantage that they can get. So they've come over to the to the Method because lighter, stronger, faster. It's a really tough wheel. 15x5, they've taken weight out of it by pulling the wheel back to 5 inches, and it's been and it also gives the right offsets. That 5+0, so those guys with the long arm kits have that positive offset wheel that brings it back in. They takes a lot of bump steer and feedback out of the vehicle. So now a lot of those guys are now looking for, well, what's next? What other advantage can I bolt to my car? That is, it's basically it's the cheapest improvement and competitive advantage you can get is to bolt the best wheel and tire onto your vehicle. So now they're looking at the bead grip wheels. They're they're not de-beading. They're hanging in there. So there's no issue there that you're going to put that wheel and tire package onto your car and go, hey, we're going to get a flat tire because it's not a bead-lock wheel. Like I said, they're proven at Dakar. They're on NASA Alatias, Toyota Gazoo, Hilux, and now the biggest the biggest proof of that concept works is it did 99.9% of the Parker 425 in the lead until there was that altercation between the two vehicles at the end.
Yep.
So
fascinating.
So until like the last 5 miles, that car was leading, and it would have won the Parker 425 on its debut with those wheels.
Unreal. That's impressive. Now, we've talked a fair bit of racing, Mick, but I was interested too because talking of racing, we were out at St. George with Ryan racing. We talked to him about that great effort that he had there. But Mick, you were at the Brisbane 4-wheel drive show doing some work with your race wheels. What I was interested in is, well, tell us, how did it go? Was there, something amazing there that you saw that really took your fancy?
Oh, and that's why I wasn't at St George. Unfortunately, we had a date clash between the Brisbane 4x4 show and the event, so we had to split our resources. And Clay and Ryan went out to the race, and I stayed back and did the 4x4 show with our team. And it was a great event. We've sort of, obviously with COVID, we haven't been to a 4x4 show in a couple of years, so it was sensational. New products. Put me on the spot there. I think it's a bit of a weird one, but 230 had this like doggy bed swag that I thought was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, yep, cool.
Is that for yourself when you play up a bit in the caravan and? But in saying that, I mean, you've got a missus that lets you buy an exhaust for the Y62, so for a Mother's Day present. So doesn't sound like you end up in the doghouse that often, but yeah. So it's a dog bed for to take camping.
It's a dog swag, basically a dog swag.
Yep, it makes a lot of sense actually, doesn't it? Because I mean, so many people do love taking their dogs on the adventure. Like it's a part of Australian culture, and it's probably something that we just let them sleep in the car or on the tray or under the car. And now they've got their own.
I take Danny Curran with me everywhere, and he's a bit of a dingo.
Boom. But I think another really cool product that I saw that I think could be advantageous to what we do with events, particularly like Fink, was Garmin had a GPS. So now that we can run GPSs, Garmin had a GPS that you can put in your vehicle. But if you have that same GPS in your chase truck, you can actually send messages between the two vehicles without any without any phone service through the satellite.
That's amazing.
So I thought that was a cool bit of gear, and you can actually track your race car from the one in your chase truck.
So if you're chasing down the side of, say, Fink's a prime example of it in Australia, but you're chasing down the side, if that truck stopped or if that buggy, you know exactly where it is, which is often, that's one of the hugest battles at Fink, isn't it? Like you're running down the service road not running down the service road, you're driving sensibly down the service road, and you don't know if that car's stopped somewhere out of sight.
Yeah. So where you guys are, they can send you messages. It's basically just via text message. So they can get in and they can send the chase truck a text message, or you can send them a text message, and with maybe gaps to the car in front, gaps to the car behind. All these sorts of events. Not knowledge is power. Knowing how hard you need to push, or if you can pull up a bit.
So you're saying that was through the satellite, so you could actually, like, the chase truck doesn't have to be, say, within a 5-kilometer radius. You could be 30 Ks behind, 40 Ks behind, and be able to track that vehicle where they're at and send them a message. So through the GPS satellite, no phone reception.
No phone reception. So you could be anywhere in the world, and you can track between those two devices.
And I'm not sure, Mick, if, again, just throwing it out for our listeners that might come from a four-wheel drive background, you know, you see it on the DVDs in America. They've been running the GPS for a long time, but that's a new advent in Australia. We haven't been allowed to use GPSs. You know, there's plus and minuses for the GPS debate, but we've now allowed GPSs. So this is something that, you know, a lot of Australian teams are getting on top of very quickly, aren't they? You know, there's not too many events now that top level cars don't have some form of tracking, or, you know, where they basically run roadmap style information and hazards and that. And that appears to be, in my opinion, a good thing. The other thing is rally safe. Obviously, that's getting a bit off topic, but in the last 10 years, we've seen some really good changes, because back in the day, we used to just race blind, didn't we?
Yeah, look, if you want to get into that debate, I'm more than happy to. But look,
not a GPS guy.
No.
Oh, fair. No. There's plus and minuses, isn't there?
Look, absolutely. There's pluses and minuses with everything. My opinion is, you know, you're adding more expense for somebody to, you know, to compete at the top and the pointy end. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not just the cost and expense of the device itself. It's, you know, it's the ability to pre-run certain racetracks and, you know, be out there and, you know, just keep plotting those waypoints or those points in.
So if I read between the lines there, you're saying, say, an event like Gundy where the track is pretty much closed 24/7 other than race weekend, and you get one sighting lap, not an issue. But say a race like starts with F, rhymes with Inc. Like Fink, it's one of those ones where people could get out there because it is actually a gazetted road. So for those listening along at home that aren't 100% familiar with Fink, it is a gazetted road, 363 days of the year, and it's closed 2 days for the race course. So you could actually go out there in March and do a lot of pre-running and GPS it. So is that what you're talking about, Mick? You're saying, see, like Gundy, you don't see as much of a problem, or Sea Lake or St. George, but Fink, you know, with GPS is in play now, there are 100% people that go out there and pre-run it and then put that into their GPS, and then they're able to do that. Whereas back in the day, I guess, I mean, we did it the first year we raced. We borrowed some footage off people and watched the footage a lot and tried to get knowledge and recorded it the next year and then watch that from the year before. But yeah, I get what you're saying about probably only in Australia, Fink might be the only one that probably comes into play with that. But the added expense then that it adds to Fink in particular.
Yeah, look, you've hit the nail on the head there, and I just think that it takes out some of the, you know, I guess it's just the old school OG in me. I feel it's not necessary within, you know, within the competition, the sport, to make it better. Like, has it made the competition better? I don't think so. I feel there's potentially some safety concerns with it as well, because that could potentially give people a bit more confidence to charge hard in dust, because they're just following the arrow on the GPS, and it could potentially, you know, turn into a big accident where, you know, they may not have been pushing so hard, you know, in the dust if they didn't know exactly where the racetrack would go. So,
or also if there is a vehicle stopped in the dust on the racetrack, that is a bit of an issue as well.
Yeah.
But do you think GPS coupled with rally safe, GPS and rally safe coupled together, because a rally safe will warn you when it's getting closer to a vehicle in front, and I guess probably thinking about it, it's that risk. Sometimes in safety and risks, you introduce another risk and a hazard that you didn't think about. And I think one that you talked about before is when they did smooth out, I'll say that like with inverted quotes, when they smoothed out Malapunya, it became so fast that when it went wrong, it went horribly wrong. So to make safe, they ended up having more of a drama. But do you think maybe GPS coupled with rally safe is a good thing in the safety department, or do you still think that just GPS alone is a bit dangerous?
I just don't see why we need GPS. Rally safe, absolutely. I think that's great technology. Even if it's just for that vehicle with the SOS and it's stopped. We race out in some very remote areas, and sometimes the only assistant you're going to have for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour is the next race car coming behind you. And if that race car coming behind you becomes part of your accident instead of part of your assistant, then I feel the rally safe is 100%. And look, there's everything comes at a cost, and rally safe. I've seen some some grumblings about the price of it, and look, I 100% get that, but I think rally safe is good for the sport as long as it's implemented in the right way, and technology is only as good as the people who are using it. So I think I saw one of the last races, the push to pass, and a lot of people were possibly misusing the push to pass and maybe pushing a little bit earlier and complaining that someone 100 meters or 150 meters in front of them didn't pull over and let them go. So I think that needs to be taken with a grain of salt. But as far as the safety aspect goes, I think rally safe is definitely a good addition to our sport. But I personally think we can live without GPS and just go back to reading the terrain and reading the track in front of you, and comes back to your experience on certain racetracks and certain terrains. But hey, that's just me.
No, fair opinion. I think it's a fair opinion, and it's something that's been discussed at depth around fires, no doubt. Now, mate, I know we've got a bit. It's like herding cats here with you lot, I think. But anyway, let's get back to the Brisbane Four-Wheel Drive Show. I like that conversation, but I was interested because the other thing that I really wanted to, we didn't get to the Brisbane Four-Wheel Drive Show, obviously, but what we were interested in is what was the favourite vehicle that you saw out there? Was there one that was like a standout? Probably, or Josh, we're sounding like haters, but surely it's not a Sandy Torp 79.
It wasn't, but it was from the Toyota stable, and you're probably going to be a bit surprised when I come out and say what it was. But there was a particular vehicle out on the showgrounds, and it would had to have been, I don't know, an 82, 83 single cab Hilux Ute in original patina.
Yes.
I thought you'd like that, JC.
I love this. I love it. Sorry, I just sat up in my chair and I'm starting to pay a bit more attention to this. Yeah, go.
It had a tub rack on it, had a rooftop tent, it had an awning on the side, had the obligatory KC highlights, the old school pod ones along the front. It had must have a dual battery with a fridge in the back. Yep. And man, that was just the coolest thing I saw at the Four-Wheel Drive Show. Sorry to everyone who had their mega dollar, $300,000 trucks. That was the one.
Straight off the cover of Peterson's Four-Wheel Drive, mate. Remember that magazine?
Yeah.
So good.
It was cool. It was like someone just found it on a farm or in a barn find or something, dusted it off, gave it a bit of love, and then brought it to the 4x4 show. And it was so just cool. The coolest thing. Yeah. Old school.
That is my one car regret in life a little bit is I went through a few Hiluxes to start off with, but one that I had, it was a 1980, the long wheelbase style side, and it had a 22 RE, a fuel injected 2.4 petrol motor out of a Corona in it, and we had 37-inch crawlers on it, Walker Evans bead locks, a 2-inch lift, and we just cut what didn't fit to actually to get it in there, and I love that truck. It was the epitome of Leafs and lockers. It had zero suspension travel, but front and rear lockers and long field CVs, so that the front end would actually hold up. It wouldn't just snap them things. But I
Valiant Coney shocks out of the old red set out of the shed.
Yes, that's right. We had an old set of Valiant 9010s in the shed, and we worked out that the open and close link was the right to give us like an extra 3 mil of travel, which was actually like a 15% increase in the front of that Hilux. But that's definitely one of my how do I say it, regrets of letting go of that car. It was awesome. So I am a big fan of those early shape Hiluxes. Like actually, I got to ask Mick, do you guys have one as a shop ute? I feel like not that long ago, on like maybe 12 months ago on Race Wheels Instagram, that I did see a single cab style side early Hilux. Did you guys have one?
Yeah, we did. It was a bit of a looked better on the Facebook Marketplace ad than it actually was.
I know that deal. That got me.
Yeah.
But I still look. I still saw it in the flesh, and I still bought it.
Yes.
And then I got it back, and I'm like, yeah, it's probably a bit more work than I'm willing to put into this project. So sold it off to somebody else. But yeah, we're definitely still on the hunt for an OG round headlight early Hilux as a shop truck.
Yeah,
very cool.
Well, at DC, tell us that story about the original white Hilux. That old girl, you got stung a bit on that one.
Listen, I was young, Mickey. I'm going to prefix it with I was young, and I drove all the way to Brisbane, and it looked really good in the middle of the night. And I drove it home, and out of the 8 body mounts, maybe 2 had steel. I'm not real sure about it. It wasn't real. I think it had done a bit of time on Fraser.
So the first giveaway that it was not good is now I don't know how they had a roadworthy for it, but we picked it up with a roadworthy. So, but the first giveaway that things were not good is as we were driving it home. If you went around, was it a left-hand corner too fast? The glove box would pop open because the whole cab was flexing so much.
Listen, it was a good ute. It climbed some hills, Josh.
Well, it had the Longfields in it, Dan. Remember, we thought we'd busted a front CV and we pulled it apart, and so we're pretty sure that that you got duped by a little old lady, because it was like an 80-year-old grandma that sold it to us, and she gave us the story of like my late husband uses it just for like backing the boat down the boat ramp, and he's got 4-wheel drive so he can pull it out. But it had a set It had a set of Longfield CVs and like 30 spline CVs and axles in the front of it. So
there was a few 2 and 2 didn't equal 4 things on that car. But anyway,
I think we got played with the old switcheroo.
Yeah, but you would 100% buy that car back today.
Oh yeah. We fixed it, and then Josh
I'm not going to lie,
Mick.
Yeah. But that's for another podcast. I'm not going to lie. When you were talking about how the shop ute wasn't quite what you thought it was, if you were getting to the end and you were going to say, oh, so it's just parked in the corner waiting to do something with it, I was probably going to ring you after we finished this podcast and throw an offer at you.
There you go. That's gold.
It had what looked to me like it was an old Class 5 aluminium fuel tank that had been taken out of that, and then it was tech screwed into the tray because the fuel tank that was underneath had rusted out.
Yes.
Ooh, yep. That'll get you.
Yeah. So look, there's another one out there with our name on it, so we'll just we'll keep hunting. But like anything old and cool like that, it's just they're going up in value.
Yeah.
Is that a shout out? Is that why you put your name on Mickey T? So if anyone's got one, slide into those DMs.
Yeah.
I'm just working out if there's a way I can get rid of Mickey's and just put mine up so that people just send it to me. Because Sandy, if you're listening, I'm joking. But between us listeners, I'm not joking. Okay.
Hey Mick,
I think we just increased the value of them in just by talking about them,
or decreased one of the two because we said we liked them.
No, that's actually an interesting point. Mick, how crazy is car prices at the moment? They have exploded. Full of drives, the market is red hot, and it's everything. I saw a GU ute the other day. It was a dual cab, Josh's favorite, chopped down, and they wanted $65,000 for a GU. That's good luck, but wowzers, where did that come from?
Yeah. And look, it's the whole 4-wheel drive industry in a nutshell, basically, where and that's part of where I think, we're selling so many method race wheels and the whole industry is doing well. Is you think about 10, 15 years ago, our demographic were buying Falcons and Commodores and lowering them and putting wheels and tires on them. That same demographic is now buying a Hilux and Ranger and raising them and putting wheels and tires on them. So, it's
I'm glad, Mick, sorry, just because I'm interested you say that, because I've always got a theory. Again, man, we're getting off topic, but I like it. I've got a theory that that's to do with when they started changing all those P-plater laws that you couldn't have turbo Sylvias, you couldn't have Skylines. There's all these rules. That's just flooded that four-wheel drive market because, hey, boys will be boys, girls will be good. I'm not trying to, but, anyone that loves modifying cars, we still love modifying cars. No, I mean, we're 40 years old and still love modifying cars. That's not changing. So the only way that we could get our fix was to get into the four-wheel drive market. Because like you said, back in the day, it's interesting. We were into Valiants. We were always a bit anomaly because we were into everything. But, you had your car guy, you had your street car guy, had his Turbo Falcon or whatever it was, the V8 Commodore or whatever it was. And now all of that group, like pretty much if you're an apprentice, you've got a four-wheel drive. Maybe that's a Central Queensland thing, but I go down to Sunny Coast, Brisbane, what's on YouTube and that's across the board now that if you're going to do because you want to be able to modify it. And a lot of these, if you're stuck on a Daihatsu Charade or something, there's not a lot you can do. I mean, body kits and that, but that loses its excitement very quickly, doesn't it? So now we're going down the path of GU wagons, 80 series, and that's just driving those prices, isn't it? That everyone wants this market.
Yeah, absolutely. And have a think about it. There's no cool two-wheel drive cars anymore. They're all exactly the same. They're all, a Jap imported SUV. There's no character. There's no, there's nothing anymore. There's no that real Ford Holland, allegiance anymore from a Commodore to a Falcon.
Yeah, that's right.
And all of the cool ones are now 30, 40, 50 years old, and they're worth a shit ton of money. So
I was blown away.
Where have all these car guys gone?
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. I was blown away. Josh, I don't know if you know this, but I saw a Nissan Silvia, an S13 for sale the other day, and it was like 40,000 for basically a stock Silvia. Again, it blew me away because we were buying those back in the day for 6, 7, 8 grand. Like, you just
if you knew, you would have been stockpiling them and putting them out the back.
It's unbelievable. So even
I was going to say,
just that it's
the amount of combis that have gone through my hands that I should have hung on to that I bought for $1,000 and then pulled them apart and wrecked them and sold the motors and the gearboxes and other parts out of them. I should have just parked them all up in a shed.
Madness, isn't it? If you had known, exactly, a crystal ball.
Oh, if you had known, you would have been stockpiling V8 diesel 200 series about 2-3 years ago. That's what you would have been stockpiling because that's
the market.
They went that's the market right there. But I think that the initial drive in that four-wheel drive scene as well is I think like DC touched on a little bit was when P plates were no longer allowed to. Oh, sorry, even for us when P platers were allowed to have Sylvias and Skylines and Commodore, high-powered Commodores, we could. I used to daily my Hilux on 37s. I was an apprentice. I used to drive it across to work, and we'd get pulled over by the cops, and they wouldn't even care. Whereas if you had anything that had a chrome rim on it or like a blow-off valve, and they were on you like white on rice. So I think that also kickstarted the four-wheel drive scene a little bit. There was a bit of anonymity. Is that the right word? From the police for a little while there. You could get away with modifying your cars and still be able to drive it pretty regularly. But I do think that has changed a fair bit as well in the last couple of years as well.
Definitely.
Yeah, look, there's probably a few contributing factors, and you're 100% right about the P platers and the vehicles that they could drive, and then I think they've just come over, and now they're like, this is what we've been missing out on. That freedom and the places that you can go and the things that you can do.
Yeah, that's the big one.
That four-wheel drive lifestyle.
And even down to, Josh, we talked about a little bit, like, we always talk about the Instagram and that, how much that spread the game too now, because there's this massive world of photos that you see, whether it be Northern Territory waterholes, or down in the Victorian high country, and now you've got this instantaneous access to it, and you're like, man, I need to get a Hilux or a whatever it is, a Ford Ranger with your cap backwards. I do like Ford Rangers, just quietly, but
got to tow a jet ski too.
Jet ski, definitely. But you got to head down
have you got the Ranger starter pack?
Yeah, I've got all of it. Monster hat. There's probably one up here, is there? Monster hat.
But exactly, at least, that monster hat up there will probably have terrible herps on it as well. So a little bit of a humble brag.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
No, but it's just interesting because I think that's another thing that's really changed the game of off-road. And look, almost like a brilliant segue, Mick, that brings me into another question that I did want to ask you, is I wanted to know, you've been around a long time now in a range of because you've done the racing, you've done the four-wheel drives, you've done the camp, you're involved across a wide aspect. What I'm actually interested in is, what do you see? What's the next big game changer for off-road as a whole, four-wheel drive, racing, whatever that is? Does it come in technology? Does it come in physical developments? On some of these new modern cars, we're now seeing active suspension. Is it the new Ford Ranger that, you click a dial and the Fox shocks all change their valving and that sort of thing, or, their bypass setup? So, we've had a bit of I don't want to say stagnant, because again, it's always been going forward, but, like King Kong shot, or the big shocks from Kings have been around for a while now. We've sort of had some development, they've been A-arm cars for since the early 2000s now. What's the next big step forward in your mind?
Look, in off-road racing, I don't think, there can't be any more big steps. They've gone to the four-wheel drive trucks, but they're not really running away with it, even over in the USA. There was the was it the Baja 400 that was just recently on?
San Felipe 250.
Oh no, it was it was a 400 where they just had the qualifying, and it was a really silty qualifying, and a lot of trucks stuck, and that was definitely an advantage to four-wheel drive, and I think the top 5 qualifying trucks were all Mason four-wheel drives. So that was a little bit of, I feel, an anomaly, because that qualifying track 100% suited the four-wheel drive trucks. But the four-wheel drive trucks don't seem to be running away with it. I think it's a little bit skewed because now you've got so many of the fast top teams with four-wheel drives that they probably would have been at the pointy end anyway in a two-wheel drive. You've just got to look at Harley in the two-wheel drive concrete truck, and he's always there, and he's always qualifying, up with them. So, look, I don't think
Jurgensen's another one, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think, and if we're talking Australian off-road racing, I think the four-wheel drive is probably there'd be more an advantage to a lot of our tracks if you had, say, a four-wheel drive buggy, something like the Reese Millen Jackal buggy. So I feel something like that would be, if you look at the Australian AORC, or even the ASA, the AORA calendar, if you look at it as a whole, I think a four-wheel drive buggy would probably do very well. I don't think you're going to have a big advantage at Finke with the four-wheel drive buggy, just with the average speed and the momentum of that racetrack. But I think you would possibly have an advantage at Finke qualifying, which then gives you an advantage at the race.
Sure.
So, I don't know so much about four-wheel drive, full-size four-wheel drive trophy trucks here, just with our current restrictions. I just don't think they can give them enough power to give them the advantage that they have. Don't get me wrong, something like Hayden Bentley's, four-wheel drive TT, can be there at the right event, every time. But I don't think he can maximise the full advantage of the four-wheel drive with our current motor regulations. So in Australia, I would probably say, if someone were to come out with a good quality four-wheel drive buggy, I think that's probably, you know, where it's going to go. But us buggy guys, you know, we don't like doing 4 CVs, let alone 8.
Yes.
True. Imagine
Never
the
a
molly in that.
truer word spoken.
So, you know, I think that's got a lot to do against us going four-wheel drive in buggies, because it's just twice the amount of CVs.
Oh, yep. No, I like that.
So, yeah, look, I think that's probably, you know, where it's at. Like, I would love to see one of those four-wheel drive jackals here in Australia, something like that, because they're now putting, you know, LSs in them. And yeah, those things are fast. They're nimble. They're proven. You know, he's run the Baja 500 with it. You know, with no you know, no mechanical issues. And
so the thing about that jackal is it's quite a lightweight build, isn't it? They used a relatively small 4-cylinder turbocharged motor in it. Is that correct? And then the idea behind it was that it was almost that Method Race Wheels motto, that it was lighter, and they wanted to try and push the envelope that way and go in a bit of a different direction with everyone else's trucks and buggies getting bigger and more motor and bigger tires and everything like that. They decided to sort of change direction and go in a different path.
Yeah, when he first developed that car, it was actually, you know, he used a fair bit of UTV side-by-side componentry on the first evolution of it. So it was actually running the Method UTV wheels and the Tensor UTV tires, and then it had like I don't know, maybe a 2-litre turbo 4-cylinder alloy block thing in it. So that was the first event that it raced a few years ago, which I think was the Mint 400. And you know, it started off the line because they had it in Class 1, and it started off the line next to, you know, a full-blown LS powered Class 1 car, and just left it for dead. So you know, just out of that infield, it was, you know, it was off the line. It was through the technical part of it, and it was gone. You know, the Class 1 probably you know, chased it down and gobbled it up through the you know, through the big stuff. But we don't have a lot of that, you know, those big G outs and big you know, big holes and big whoops that they have in the US here in Australia. So, you know, I think someone with, you know, bit of talent, and, you know, potentially that could be where a lot of the current side-by-side guys go who know how to drive a four-wheel drive, potentially be looking, you know, to get into something like that, which suits their driving style. They don't have to change their driving style to get out of the side-by-side into a buggy. They can you know, take everything they've learned from the side-by-side class and then get into one of these buggies.
There you go. I like that answer, Mick. And I definitely agree with you. Like the four-wheel drive buggy, you've got the weight advantage, but you've also got the traction. And again, you did touch on it, and it's interesting, a point of view of someone that's raced over in America. You know, we think about Think and Gunda Windy as the big stuff. Gundy's pretty big, I will admit that. But Think is really like large chop in America, isn't it? Like it's those hard, sharp, rocky edges of the Mint and of Baja. Like it's a different world compared to what we are racing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you know, the thing for us is, you know, once you get into those big whoops, you know, that's about as big as it gets in Australia, with the depth and also, you know, the distance between them. And, you know, don't get me wrong, you need a dialed in car to be able to get on top of those whoops and then, you know, and run that racetrack. And, you know, the speeds that the pointy end is doing over that, like you just look at the average speed of the Fink Desert Race and then have a look at the average speed of, you know, the Mint, where like the Mint's sort of getting a little bit faster because of some of the big wide open stuff. But, you know, traditionally, you know, it wasn't that long ago that 55 mile an hour was about the, you know, the average speed of the winner of a, you know, a big race in the USA, purely just because of how big the stuff is. So what's that, about 90 k's an hour?
Yep, 90 k's an hour.
I think if you want to win Fink, I think a couple of years ago I worked out the average speed to win Fink was 147 kilometres an hour.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Well, it makes sense. 240 odd kilometres on the track. And then, you know, they're doing it now in what, an hour 43 is the fastest time ever. Josh, you're a bit more of a stat man than me, but it's either 143 or 146. That's insane.
I think it's closer to 146.
Yep, 6. Yep.
Is my gut. But yeah, it's just those average speeds. So, you know, you look at it and go, are our cars and drivers just better that we're going faster? No, it's the racetracks are so much rougher over there. They're, you know, the average speed. So, like, those guys are still doing 140 miles an hour, you know, and that's miles an hour, not kilometres an hour, you know, across lake beds. But they're still doing, you know, 70, 80, 100 mile an hour over 4-foot whoops. You know, you just need to have a look at some of those testing videos out at Barstow, and you know, they're going through big holes and they're doing, you know, 100 mile an hour, and those things are fast.
So just to jump in, do you think that with the what your question was? Oh, I was just going to jump in and say, with the average speeds different there, do you reckon that and we did sort of talk about it a little bit before, but do you think that that's because, say, Fink is an out and out sprint race? Like, you know, you talk to people and they go, if you've got to change a tire, you're not winning. You know, whereas America definitely does have a little bit of a different mindset. They might race at, you know, 90%, or you know, they might start off at 85 and like you said, jostle for position a bit through the pits and everything like that. And then if they're in the hunt in that last, say, 40, 50 mile, they'll wind the wick up and go for it and go for the win. Whereas, like, some footage that comes to my mind that is an absolute classic is old Trav Robinson launching that Jimco off the start line so hard on, you know, race day one. He wound that thing up on the boost on the converter so hard that it spat old mate out that was trying to hold the board behind the tires to stop rock spraying, and it actually knocked him over. It's a classic bit of footage if you're on the OBR YouTube channel. But that's the intensity of what they race Fink at in this day and age. Like, from the moment the green light drops, it's 100%, and if you're at anything less than 100%, like, you're not going to win it. Now, there'll also be
20% trim, mate.
There'll be coffee. There'll be 19 guys out of the top 20 that are going to break, but there's going to be one person that does it. Like, is there an intent? I guess I'm asking you as well, because someone that has raced in America, just from a visual outside, to me, it kind of feels like there is that slight intensity difference from the start line. Like you said, they jostle for position and then go for it in the last 50, 60 mile. Whereas Australia, it's flat out 100% from the very first get-go.
Yeah, look, I think it comes down to the lengths of our race, and you hit the nail on the head with Fink is 100% a sprint race there, and you can rebuild your race car and have a fresh race car, and 100%, you know, full-on sprint all the way back. And you've got 20 guys that are going to do that, and the one that has the best luck, you could qualify back in the field, like back in 2019. Jack Rhodes had that rollover, got seeded in 15th or 16th, had some luck with cars dropping out in front of him on the way down, and turned around and came home in P1. So
Hayden Bentley was another one.
Yep. So, you know, if all those planets sort of align, and you know, you get that clean air, then you know you can do well at that event. So, you know, there's, you know, I feel take Toby Price out of the equation at the moment, because you know, I personally think right now he's unbeatable, I think. I think Toby is the perfect storm of talent, track knowledge, vehicle preparation.
Yep.
I don't think anyone can touch him. So you take him out of the equation, then there's 19 other guys, and if Toby has a trouble-free run, then take him out of the equation, then those rest 19 are racing for second outright. But it is 100% a sprint all the way there. Whatever you got to throw all your cards on the table and run down to Fink, and then turn around and do the exact same thing on the way back.
Yeah.
Whereas the US in the US, their races are longer. If you look at something like even the mid 400 now, I feel is a sprint race for the guys for those guys. But you get down into Baja and the 1,000. I think they'd have to be keeping a little bit more up their sleeve than something like the San Felipe 250 or even Vegas to Reno. I think is probably just balls to the wall and end up where you end up.
Well, I suppose, Mickey T, even down to it's no longer 2 or 3 guys. You think about the 90s and even the 2000s. There was 2 or 3 guys with the technology. Let's even spread it. There might have been 10 guys with the position. Now you look at the depth of field, and this is true of Fink. This is true of America. This is true of, almost everywhere. The depth of the field now, like you look through, and we were talking about it. When you start, again, like you said, I understand what you're saying. Oh, there's this one guy like Toby is a standout. But then, there's also all these things in off-road racing, and then there is just a flood of people that have the potential to win this thing outright. It's not like 2 or 3 guys that got good AR buggies. No. There's 50 amazing cars. There's 50 amazing drivers.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that. And I guess my comment about Toby was Fink specific.
Oh, 100%. Toby, I think, is lightning in a bottle. Like, I don't think we'll see it again for a while.
Yeah, look, I would love to see Toby come out and do, some other events like Gundy or, some of the, Kalgoorlie or, whatever. He's still going to be a talent. He's still going to, have a great truck.
Absolutely.
He's still going to be. One thing he won't have is he's not going to have the track knowledge. So I think that will that will equalise him a bit to the rest of the field. And not taking anything away from him at all. Like the bloke is an absolute legend on 2 wheels and 4 wheels. But like I said, I think that at Fink he's that perfect storm with the amount of miles he's done pre-running on his dirt bike over the years, that he just knows which one of those blind crests he can hold it flat and which one he needs to lift off. Where everybody else, they're like, oh shit, is this the one that I'm going to have the big accident? So we'll lift off. And like, oh no, that wasn't the one. Then they plop down, and then you've got to try and gain that momentum, again on that sand. But you're right, DC. You go to the rest of those events and the depth and the race cars, like you just go through and look at all the cars and go, well, regardless of who the driver is, that car can win, that car can win, that car can win, that car can win, and then it just comes down to the talent behind the wheel.
Absolutely. And we've got you guys stepping in constantly too. We went to St. George, didn't we, Josh? And the new names, or, names that had stepped up from other classes and that into pro buggies, into trophy trucks. We've got all these, the Loveday boys there, the Swinglehurst guys are there, like the North Queensland crew with Mick Marson and Talbot Cox. Like, there's so many great races now that have got talent, they've got ability, they've got the vehicle, they've got everything. And it's going to be, I love it. Every time that I get into off-road racing, it's just the more I think, the more I enjoy it, the more I get in, the options are limitless with this. So I'm excited. I think it's going to be a great season this season. And I think we actually talked about it the other day, didn't we, Josh, where we said initially there was this, ARB versus AORC thing, but now we're sort of getting to this beautiful position where everyone's choosing their races. We get to go to a lot of things. We get to do a lot of different things, different tracks. You really choose what suits you.
Yeah, look, it comes down to, the customer's winning. And at the moment, the customer is the competitor. And there are so many really, well-run, good events, both at that national level with the ARB series versus the AORC. So, you can pick and choose which event that you want to go to that suits your time frame, suits your budget, suits your calendar. And then there's other great events, like the Don River Dash that aren't part of one of those national championships, but I think it's a marquee event, and they put it on at the right time of year for Southerners to be able to come up and and experience. They can have best of both worlds. They can mix it in with a holiday in central North Queensland, go out to the Whit Sundays, and go race in an iconic location and a great event.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things that really helps with the Don River is it's got that like what Gundy gets, like what those races that seem to thrive is it's got the local support and the local council support as well. Like I think in one of the first years that the Whitsunday Shire Council was actually the major sponsor of the Don River Dash. So, but I was having a chat to Mick the other day, Mick Marson, one of the organisers, and he was saying that I may not get the figures exactly right, but this is a little plug to tell people to be ready. I think they were deciding this year that they're going to cap the bikes at maybe 300 bikes and 120 cars. So that's like only a couple of years old, and it's getting close to like Fink level numbers. Like that'll make it the second biggest off-road race in Australia at this point in time.
Oh, it's great. When that event first came out, when it had similar sort of aspects to Fink, and the way that you saw that it was being run, and the location and the time of year. It's like, geez, this event's got a lot of potential.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's gonna continue to grow, and it would be awesome. Particularly like the cars are like top level field as well. But it'd be unreal to see guys like David Walsh there, Triggy there, like Toby on his bike again. It'd be awesome to see it grow continually as bikes, because I think there's that real cross sectional area between cars and bikes. Like that's one of the highlights I love about going to Fink and Don River is once the cars are finished racing, it's like, righto, we've had the main meal and now the bikes are coming out. There's a little bit of dessert happening, whereas I guess the bike boys are probably saying we've had the entree, now the main course comes out. So there's a bit of something for everyone, and I think we share that same passion of racing cars or two wheels. They got way bigger kahunas than us, but hey, and one of the cool things, Dean Ferris was there, and I see that Dean Ferris has Dean Ferris was at the Don, and he retired after a bad injury from racing motocross in Australia, but after sort of taking a bit of time off and riding the Don and doing a few events like that, he's actually back on a factory Honda. So he's back racing factory Hondas for Australian in the MX series here in Australia. Sorry, not for Australia, in Australia. But I believe that he has expressed his interest that he is still keen to ride the Don River Dash. So we might even see a bit of that KTM Honda rivalry start to fire up again a bit if Dean rocks up on a Honda. So that's something pretty cool as well for the guys there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you said that there's that, I guess, that similarity between the the two-wheel guys and the four-wheel guys. There's that saying getting around, with age comes a cage. So there's so many of those guys that at some point in time they're going to end up in off-road racing. So if they can get a feel of what our sport is all about by doing races like the Fink Desert Race and then coming over into the Don, then that can only be good for the four-wheel side of off-road racing as well.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Hey, now what do you reckon, boys? Mickey, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on. We've enjoyed the conversation because I was just looking at the list. There's so much that we've covered and there's so much off-road racing. I don't know, Joshy, what do you reckon? We'll have to have Mickey back at some point and have another chat to him.
Well, I think so. We haven't even really started to delve much into the history of Team Taylor. So I think it's something that we definitely should get back. So I suppose as we're starting to wrap up, Mick, a quick little shout out. Is there anyone in particular that you would, sponsors of Team Taylor or Race Wheels Australia or or just the wife and the kids at home, you know, if there's anyone you'd like to say a thanks to for the support in the last couple of years?
Oh, look, it takes, you know, it takes a lot to do what we, you know, what we get to do with, you know, not just business, but also, you know, going away racing and all, you know, everything, you know, as a whole. Like, you know, our family, the Taylor family, we, you know, we live and breathe off-road racing. We have done it. It's all we know. I guess it's the glue that keeps, you know, us together in a certain way. You know, and now we've got third generations coming through. So, you know, the only way that can happen in our situation is, you know, through our businesses, through our family support, where, you know, we have the support to, you know, and the understanding that, yes, you know, go spend the hours in the shed, or go away racing, or, you know, do the big hours at work, you know, because, you know, these things just don't happen. So, you know, there's obviously there's the business support with, you know, through Race Wheels Australia. The other company, Uni Industries, which, you know, is still, you know, still a big factor in what we do with the, you know, the solar power systems that we install. There's Toyo Tires are a fantastic support to us. They're also part of, you know, what we do with Race Wheels Australia. Tensor Tire, which is owned by Method Race Wheels. So without those companies, we can't do what we do. And then it just comes down to the rest of the families, the wives, the kids, mum. It takes all of that to make it all happen. So just a massive shout out to all those people that, I guess, have the patience and the to put up with what we do, and you know, and we're writing those checks for an indulgence that could be going elsewhere, and families could be doing other things.
Yeah,
For
absolutely.
sure.
But I think one of the great things about Team Taylor, Mickey, and it's always been from the day dot, is that you guys roll deep. You know, when you turn up, it's always all the grandkids, all the kids. You know, it's a real family environment, and that's something that's so great about off-road racing. You know, and it's becoming more and more prevalent. Is that, you know, me myself, and I know with Josh and that, you know, when we go to off-road races, we bring the families, and they love it just as much. And that's probably a great thing. Again, it's an army that goes with Team Taylor and supports, and, you know, does wheel changes and bits and pieces. It's fantastic to see, mate.
Yeah, well, look, there's probably not too many things that you can do. Well, not that we can do or want to do. You know, with everybody there, you know, at the same time. You know, like off-road races were. It pretty much came to them. They were family holidays. So everybody took time off work to go to be there. Other people, there were other things that, you know, people could be going and doing, but they chose to spend all that time together, you know, going to those events and races. So there's any families that are out there that are thinking about, what sport do we want to get our kid into, or what do we want to go and do as a family? There's nothing better than off-road racing, where the son or the daughter can sit with, you know, the dad or the mum, or the husband and wife can ride in the car together. And now we've got that junior class from 10 to 14. You can go there with two vehicles, and you're not. Yes, it's expensive, but it's only as expensive as you need to make it. Like the kid class, what are you spending? 15K. And look, yes, 15 grand's a lot of money, but once you're done with that car, you'll still get 15 grand back for it. But the experiences and the memories that you'll create, worth way much more money than you know, what you spend on the race car.
Yep, totally agree. Brilliant.
Yeah, and I guess it's one of those things we talk about it. It's sometimes how I've described my family, as I say that you know, some families play football together, some families play cricket. We're just a family that we go we go off-road racing, and that's what we do in our spare time. Everything sort of is geared towards being able to do that, to supply the money to do it, to have the support to do it, to have the time and effort to be able to do it as well on the side as well. So I think you're right, particularly now with this, is it called junior champions with the junior development class of the 10 to 14? It's a super addition to our sport. I think it's going to be great for the sport. It's going to be able to exponentially grow it, because no longer are the kids just coming along to watch. They can actually get involved.
Yeah, that's right. The class is called Future Champions. It's only accessible at the moment through AORA and AASA. So hopefully MA will come on board and embrace and support that. There were certain parties within the AORA and AASA, mainly the Rob Chapman and a few of his team were very passionate about it, and they made it happen. And I think that's probably one of the the biggest achievements in our sport in the last few years, as far as future proofing the sport and solidifying the strengths of where we're at, is to bring more of these juniors in. And I think they've pretty much got it spot on, in the first year of what they were doing. So the vehicles are the Polaris XP 1000 non-turbo, and I'm old school here, I'm going to call it Class 3, which is sportsman buggy, which is up to 1200, and Class 7, which is production four-wheel drive. So, 3 good grassroots classes that you don't need to spend huge amounts of money to go race. And I think it's been a huge success.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. I think you see more and more competitors, and as more and more competitors jump on, and more and more families jump in and support it through AASA and Aurora, and that I think we'll have to see. Well, hopefully that the flood of support can only force MA's hand and make it that they essentially have to bring that junior champions class in. So we're going to start to wrap it up a little bit, but we'll just give ourselves a couple of shameless plugs here. So first off, to all the people listening along at home or watching along at home, one of the things we've said a couple of times is we want to be interactive. So if you've made it this far to the podcast and you've enjoyed having a listen to Mick, Dan, and I have a little bit of a chat, grab a snap of yourself. Tell us where you're listening to the podcast. Post it up on your story or Instagram. Tag us in our Instagram handle. It's at @dirtbags_podcast. And the most interesting and one that we find, we're actually going to give away an Off-Road Cartel snapback. So thanks to the boys, a couple of good-looking roosters at Off-Road Cartel that have come on board and sponsored the show as well. So shameless plug for a couple of our companies there. But yeah, send us a photo of send us a story and tag us in it of where you're listening to this podcast, and or if you've got any good ideas for the show or you'd like to be involved, we've got an email as well now up and running. It's dirtbagspodcast@gmail.com. So one of the things we want to do is be able to hear from you guys. We want to be a show of the people for the people.
Well, Josh, the other thing all the cool kids are doing, don't you have to do that? What is it? Hit the bell, press like, do the subscribe thing. We're new to this YouTube game, mate, but if you've seen it before, do all of those ones down. What is it over there?
I hate to break it to you, I don't have anything loaded to be able to bring that up, but maybe in post-production we might be able to do something cool. But yeah, so we couple little things there. Make sure you get a bit interactive with ourselves through the Instagram apps. Hit us up on our personals as well. Josh Curran 41, Off-Road Cartel, and Mickey _T246. Mickey T. So Mick, massive shout out. We thank you for finding a bit of time. You're on a family holiday as well, up for you, down for us, Byram Head. So we really appreciate you jumping on board. And it's Well, honestly, I hope you guys have enjoyed it, because for me and Dan, it's been like catching up with a good friend and just having a little bit of a chat and actually learning a little bit of the history as well behind the Taylor family. So, mate, we appreciate you jumping on board and coming on to the podcast.
No worries, guys. I'm like I said at the beginning, I'm honoured that you asked me so early in the piece, and mate, it's been a blast. It was just like catching up and having a couple of drinks with you boys.
I like that.
Well, sadly, I don't know. They're going to have to make something a bit bigger than a 660. Did you just say shout out to Yeti?
Shout out to Yeti.
We will not bow down to any sponsor.
They're not a sponsor.
No, they're not. But somehow we're bound down to them. So as we wrap it up, we say thank you for listening. Hope you had a good time. And as we always finish the show up, don't forget that if you're the last one there, you're the first shout.
Is that a real thing?